We go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
You cannot sit in a bubble and act as if we can stay in America and all the economy is just going to work out just here without facing any conflicts. Other people are evil. They want to take over the world. They want complete economic dominance. They want America to be to not exist anymore, especially some of these ideological Islamic terrorists. They would love to take over America and it be an Islamic state. Let me show you something that should outrage every American. These pills can end a pregnancy, and this isn't Plan B. This is a chemical abortion pill. And today, they can be ordered online and delivered straight to your mailbox. No doctor's office, no clinic, just a few clicks and abortion shows up at your front door. It's just a few feet away in your home or your neighborhoods. And while the abortion industry is making it easier than ever to end a life, Save the Storks is working to make it easier for women to choose life. Because sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do is very simple. Let life happen. They send medical mobile clinics into communities so women can see their baby, get real support, and know they're not alone. But they need people like you to step up. Here's the truth. Women in your community, even at your church, are ordering these pills online. They need your help. So the question is, how will you respond? For just $10 a month, this is super simple and easy. You can help Save the Storks reach women before the pill ever arrives in the mailbox. Hope should arrive before abortion pill does. Go to SaveTheStorks.org/Tatum right now and become a monthly supporter like my family. Because when abortion can be delivered overnight, it's time that we deliver hope even faster.
So subsequently, we get again, shaky, tenuous, whatever you want to call it, ceasefire. But we still are keeping our military there. This from Trump. All U.S. ships, aircraft, and military personnel with additional ammunition, weaponry, and anything else that is appropriate and necessary for the lethal prosecution and destruction of an already substantially degraded enemy will remain in place in and around Iran until such time as the real agreement is reached and fully complied with, et cetera, et cetera. Brandon, what would you say to someone on the right who I'm not talking about the real crazies. I'm talking about somebody on the right who's just an isolationist, just a pure libertarian. That's their ideology, and they're upset about all of this. What would you say to that person?
Well, I think that we have to be educated on reality, right? I mean, in a utopian world, we could be isolationist and we don't have to get in any war. And somehow the money still comes in and trade still goes out and we don't have any dealings in that. But the reality is we have to have some type of involvement around the world to keep America safe. Some of these wars or some of these conflicts need to be fought off American soil. A lot of trade, some of the economic success that we've been having around the world, some of our enemies, we have to have an advantage over them, right? I mean, we cannot let China and Russia and some of these other places kind of take a stronghold around the world. And I don't understand how isolationists contend with this, because if we didn't have agreements and partnerships around the world, in South America, in the Middle East, then China would. And then before you know it, our price of oil will be controlled by an adversary. And we don't need that. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way we have to be. You cannot sit in a bubble and act as if we can stay in America and all the economy is just going to work out just here without facing any conflicts. Other people are evil. They want to take over the world. They want complete economic dominance. They want America to be to not exist anymore, especially some of these ideological Islamic terrorists. They would love to take over America and it be an Islamic state. So we have to understand that, and we have to appropriately address those things across the world.
So I want to show you guys, and hopefully we don't have to spend too much time on this. I'm really trying not to focus on the Tucker, Megyn sort of portion of all of this, but I want to show you something that I think is interesting here. Tucker again did a show on this yesterday, and look at the tweet on this. Netanyahu launches terror attack on Beirut, destroying Trump's ceasefire. We need to detach from Israel immediately. Now, it's interesting that he's calling it a terror attack, and he's connecting it to the ceasefire because, well, first off, a state stopping a terrorist organization, Hezbollah, from launching rockets into their territory, that by no definition is a terror attack. That aside, it turns out that the ceasefire had literally nothing to do with Lebanon. Here's J.D. Vance on that.
First of all, I actually think, and there's a lot of bad faith negotiation and a lot of bad faith, propaganda going on. I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states.
So, Brandon, whether Iran made a mistake in the translation or not, you have Tucker taking their side of it, calling Israel our ally in this, who's defending their own citizens. 300,000 people are not living in the north for the last 2 years because of this rocket fire. Not only calling it terror, but basically saying it breaks the ceasefire, which it had nothing to do with. What is going on? And of course, he won't issue a retraction or a correction or say, actually, I did get, poor information on this, et cetera, et cetera.
Dave, it's all about hatred of Israel and Jews. That's what all of this stuff comes down to. I don't know what kind of psychological trauma that these people are going through in their mind, but for whatever reason, and I think majority of it is spiritual, they just hate Jews and Israel so much that everything has to be the fault of the Jews. Everything has to be the fault of Israel. He could have taken 30 seconds to do some deep dive research before he make a crazy accusation against one of our allies. All he had to do was take a little bit of time and listen to what Donald Trump had to say, listen to what J.D. Vance had to say, do a little research online and put two and two together. But that's not their motive. None of these people have a motive that way. They're willing to betray the United States of America in the pursuit to hate Israel. I'm telling you, that's why the thing is that I never see any of these people talk about the Christians being slaughtered by Islamic terrorists. You never hear them say anything about Iran slaughtering their own people. They cry day and night about Gaza, and it's a genocide. It's a genocide. And we see, according to them, a genocide happening in Iran against their own people. And they hate Christians, and they hate America, and they won't even say anything about it. But they are willing to fix their mouth to come up or concoct a fake story that has to do with Israel and hating Israel.
Pointing out the direct being caught in a lie. We all talk for a living. We all make mistakes. Like, there's just no doubt about it. However, when I make a mistake and someone points it out to me, I address it and move on. So it's to me, it's like it's insulting to the audience, if nothing else. If you don't want to have a little personal integrity, at least care about your viewers. And just to end this real quick, so subsequently, since the ceasefire had nothing to do with Lebanon, well, this is just in from Disclosed TV, the first ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Lebanon will be held at the U.S. State Department in Washington. And of course, as you guys know, it's a little tricky because Lebanon's not even in charge of their own country, but we'll leave that there. Let's continue to the other part of this all week, which was that Trump really does seem to be laying the groundwork to leave NATO, and I think it's probably very deserving. Listen to this from Trump on Truth. NATO wasn't there when we needed them, and they won't be there if we need them again. Remember Greenland, that big, poorly run piece of ice. I mean, guys, it seems to me we foot the bill on NATO. Some allies kind of offered up mealy-mouthed statements like the UK. Spain completely closed their airspace to us, although Trump said, we could still take it and land if we want. They're not going to do anything. I think NATO's on its last legs. And if somehow this thing starts wrapping up, that will be Trump's next international move. What do you think about that, Brandon?
Oh, no, I think that's 100% appropriate. And this is just from a layman's perspective, just the average American. If we're contributing to something that's not benefiting America, then we just divest from it. I mean, it's that simple. Donald Trump is showing and displaying for the world that NATO is not supportive in the efforts that we're doing to liberate people in Iran and make America a safer place by eliminating the threat level in the Middle East and also supporting our allies. And we're also supported the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and all these other countries that want peace. But then NATO don't want to contribute because they're cowards. And so what Donald Trump is saying is like, look, when we needed you the most, although we're giving you guys all this money and we're funding and we're supporting your military, we're supporting the defense and safety for you, we're going to keep track of this, and we're going to divest from some of these places that are not benefiting America. And I hope that he actually does it.
So look at this. So then Trump brings in NATO Secretary Mark Rutte, who's the former prime minister of of Holland, and he clearly he had smacked him around a little bit, because then Rutte goes on Jake Tapper, and watch this.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the president is weighing punishing some NATO allies for not being helpful to the U.S. and Israel during the war. Quote, the proposal would involve moving U.S. troops out of NATO member countries deemed unhelpful to the Iran war effort and station them in countries that were more supportive of the U.S. military campaign. Did the president talk about that at all today?
Again, it was a very frank, it was a very open discussion. He clearly told me what he thought of what happened over the last couple of weeks.
Some countries specifically said, you can't use our bases, you can't even fly over our airspace. Spain, France.
Yeah, but listen, the large majority, including France, of European nations has been doing what they committed before they would do in a case like this. Not all European nations lived up to those commitments, and I totally understand that he is disappointed about it.
Brennan, he went on to say that actually having an incapacitated Iran is good, and he's glad that this whole thing happened. But you could clearly see this is the guy who runs NATO, and he basically was like, yeah, without Trump, we're nothing. So whatever he wants, we just want that cash.
Well, yeah, and I'm sick of us playing with people like this. I mean, I think that we've been so robotic the way we operate as a government that nobody's willing to go think outside the box and say, you know what, enough is enough. You know, Donald Trump is the only president, and one of the few presidents that's really looking out for America's best interests. And he's willing to say whatever, do whatever, and take extreme steps and measures, even if it's unorthodox, to do what's right for America. I don't know why we playing games with these people anyway. Look, we should have zero tolerance. Now, maybe I need to look into NATO a little bit more, but it seems to me that we should have zero tolerance for stuff like this. You want to get woke and say that you're not going to let us use the military bases in the airspace? Like, you want to play around, then you're going to find out. Because none of these people can exist without America. None of them. We're the strongest military, we have the best intelligence, and then they want to play around just like these woke weirdos in the United States of America. You know, they say they hate America, but they won't move. They want all the resources of capitalism, but they want to push socialism. It's the same thing with NATO. If you guys want to be clowns and you want to play around, we're going to divest from you, never to return again, and then good luck.